All right, so we'll get started. It's 10:02 a.m., June 3rd, 2025. This is the selection advisory meeting for RFP 2514 PW, Pelican Preserve Pond Maintenance Services. I'm Randy Pinella, the contracts manager, and I'll let the selection advisory committee introduce themselves.
Stephanie McLean, stormwater specialist at Gateway.
Jim Latham on the Pelican Preserve Ponds Group.
Harold Dainu, Pelican Reserve Pond Group advisor, I guess.
All right, so then I'll go over the project details, timeline, and then we can go ahead and review the selection advisory's recommendation and they can discuss their methodologies. So the project entails the district is seeking proposals for the maintenance of one flowway and 55 ponds within its jurisdiction. Qualified respondents must supply all necessary equipment, labor, and materials. The contract duration is initially 3 years with the option for 2 additional 1-year renewals. No bid bond is necessary for the project. The proposers were able to submit bids for Group A, Group B, or Group C, with Group C encompassing all ponds and flowways. And then the timeline, RFP issuance was April 21st. Non-mandatory pre-bid was May 2nd. Questions were due May 9th. Our responses to those questions were due May 14th. Submittals were due May 21st. Bid were opened that same day at 2:15. Selection advisory review is scheduled today, June 3rd at 10 a.m. Then this is to be taken to the Ponds Group for their recommendation, June 10th. Then to PPAC, June 12th. And then the notice of intent is to be posted June 12th for the board's recommendation the following week. Just a brief overview, the selection advisory committee members received proposals and the workbook to assess each submission against a specified evaluation criteria that was included in the bid package. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss the reasoning behind each member's rankings and to recommend a proposer for the selection based on their evaluation of the most advantageous vendor to provide services to the district. The district received the following bids from the vendors and were ranked as follows. They've been compiled. Let me share my screen. This is the compiled results. Let me zoom in. All right, so as of this time, the number 1 rank is Superior Waterway Services, number 2, Solitude Lake Management, 3, Cross Creek Environmental, Inc., 4, Premier Lakes, 5, Florida Aquatic Solutions, 6, Met Tower Environmental, 7, Estate Management Services, 8, Tigris Aquatic Services, and 9, Biotech Consulting. And then you have some of the points there, which were each person was attributed 100 points per vendor.
There was 3 of us that.
Four.
Stephanie was also.
Yep. Al's not here today, but he did submit his workbook to me. So at this time, I'll turn it over to the selection advisory members to discuss their scoring and make any appropriate recommendations. Let's see. The SAC. Okay. All right. That's all up to you guys now. Just discuss how you ended up with your own, summation of points.
You want to pull up the evaluation criteria?
Yeah. Let's see. Let me bring up a different one. Give me 1 second. Let's go. Yeah. Okay. So this was the evaluation criteria that every bidder pretty much was up against.
Okay. Well, I guess my focus is just going to be on the top 3.
Okay. Yeah.
I had, in looking at them, one bid was way out of line with everybody else. So, and looking at the various quotes, I kind of focused on the top 5 because bids were all within the 120s and down. So I didn't.
That's okay.
Spend time on something that wasn't going to be really in contention. So let's see. Personnel, the first criteria, for 20 points. I kind of reviewed, let's see, how long the place was in business, the qualifications, and how much experience the primary people working there are. The workload all seemed, as long as they were in business for a few years, I didn't find any problems with the potential for workload. You know, I had rated Superior as a full 15, Solitude is 12. They just didn't have as many years with the firm as Superior did. There was 4 to 5 years with the firm for all the lead employees. Cross Creek, you know, they had many years of experience in there, so they were a 15.
Yeah, I noticed when you put the total points up, the first two, Superior and Solitude, I think because we have experience with them, they both are under contract with Pelican now. I think that was a big factor in my rating them anyways. I know with Solitude, I work on the conservation with them, and so I have experience with them, so that meant a lot. And if you look at their time in business, Solitude was, I gave them 15 points, basically because they've been in business for a good long time. And it's a large company because they're all over the state of Florida, when I recall looking at the background, and having experience with it, that made maybe 15. Also, with Superior, they're doing the ponds for us now, and I gave them 15 points for qualifications. 26 years in business, and talking to Jim, they're doing a fairly good job with the ponds now. So that, and their quotes were pretty much the lower quotes of the whole list of 9.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with both of you. I rated all these top 3, all 15 for qualifications. I mean, I have experience with Cross Creek, and they've been great. They have qualified techs. They have ample experience with Gateway on this side. Right. And then, yeah, you guys have Solitude and Superior currently working with you guys. Because I know where Aquatic was a lower bid, but what they lacked was experience with Gateway and history.
Yeah, exactly. Only been in business since July of 24, so
yeah.
That's not less than a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not necessarily a reflection on how they would do the job, but there's just more risk than I felt I was comfortable taking on for a 3, potential 5-year, and I wouldn't want to go with somebody since I have other options, if then I find that we're dissatisfied and then looking to have a breach of the contract. Because a lot of times people could feel that they are fulfilling the terms of a contract, but the overall job, it might not have the level of service that the community is looking for. So there's can definitely be, one's a little grayer, a little fuzzier, but.
How about Premier Lakes? What do you think of Premier Lakes?
Not 2 or 3 years in business,
yeah, right.
And they had
only 4 total employees. That's what I saw.
One of my concerns is they had a legal, some litigation with Solitude a couple of years ago, creating this company, and there was some going after some of the contracts that he had worked with, and then I start questioning ethics to a degree, and that came into my
because they had the second lowest bid.
But that came into my my points.
And again, their knowledge of Gateway and their history just lack compared to these other ones that are low as well.
Now, Cross Creek works in Gateway?
They were our previous ponds contract.
They were previous.
Yeah, but I had great experience with them. I liked all their techs. They did a good job. They were here weekly, had multiple technicians, so
I know
Yeah.
some of the communities also were hoping to maintain them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So they didn't want the contract? Is that-
Well, they did. They didn't
Submitted,
get,
yeah.
the board of directors chose a lower bid.
So,
Yeah.
price.
Yeah.
Anything else on the first criteria? Otherwise,
I'm good with that.
going down to criteria 2, company qualifications, experience, and references. This is for a total of 45 points. First one was the ability to manage projects within time and budget constraints, minimizing out-of-scope or extra services. You know, any community that we have a budget, we're looking to make sure that when we have a contractor, you know, and when you're looking at bids, you want to make sure that it doesn't come back and, you know, I'll call it nickel and dime, but that it's going to be meeting what your expectations are. You know, I did have some input into the document that went out to bid, trying to make sure that everybody who bid was aware of what we were trying to do. In our first meeting with the questions, this also allowed a couple people with questions on what they had on the bid. You know, he tried to provide some clarification. So each one, I rated it at 20 points because they all had, you know, plenty of time in business. Cross Creek is 17. Current and previous experience with CDD and other governmental agencies with contract comparable in scope. Now, originally, my request was to have this really for Pelican. You know, but I understand this is a broad-based document to use throughout Gateway. You know, but I looked at it. I looked at it with our current experience. So that's where my rating came in.
Right.
References. Everybody had references. Work order management system, deliverable tracking. This was, I guess, really providing updates and being able to track, I guess, recurring problems, you know, things like that. While the document in Solitudes was awesome, I haven't received any. Stephanie did say this morning that she's been receiving updates, you know, but I had requested some, you know, to be included on the updates as the person on the ground in Pelican, you know, and while I think that looked amazing, I don't think that that's something that, you know, that's almost like a presentation. If I was going to do something to the community, that would be neat.
Yeah, right. Well, are those the same type of update you're getting, what was in the presentation?
No,
No,
it was a
it's more
different
of a-
format.
About
Different, yeah.
which is practical.
Yeah.
That's real. I don't need to go through
Yeah, right, you don't need
15 pages,
portraits.
you know, with a you know, a sheet showing what was done, what ponds were hit, and that you know, observations. You know, that's makes it easier for me to go through it and see, because again, I forward these on to our pond walkers. So if they're looking and say, you're wondering why they see something, they can say, oh, that was treated 3 weeks ago, hence a band of dead, dying spike rush or whatever. So it's there to provide them with confirmation of what they're observing.
How many pond walkers do you have?
About 15.
Do you have?
Yeah, with the 56 ponds, it's broken down to these are all retired people.
That's still impressive.
And they
though,
do it
15.
and they do it in the summertime too. So I don't want anybody to die on my watch.
How often do they do it? Once a month?
No, well, originally we asked for once a month, but we found it was overkill, so we ask for about every 6 to 8 weeks. And again, if it rains, it's really, their purpose is to confirm that the littoral depths are right, that the aerators are functioning, that they observe, plastic bags in the banks. Usually we pick them up as we're walking too, just like the contractors are doing. If they identify any vines in the existing littorals, washouts, focusing kind of on corners of ponds where it tends to get thick or shallow areas, trying to make sure. And they interface with people out on their lanai who ask what you're doing, and it helps. These are neighbors of theirs, and haven't had anybody have a problem in that respect. But
Yeah, because I collect the pond water and take it over to,
Harold is involved in
collecting the water.
doing the water testing and in the conservation areas.
For Solitude and Superior, do you guys have experience with them? Do you feel like when they're out there doing pond treatments, do they report washouts and constantly update you about stuff as they're going through?
Well, I haven't had, we recently, about 2 months ago, asked for that level of notification. In light of over COVID, I did a walk on all the ponds, and that's what we found. We had some bank issues, and we started a bank restoration project. Also identified a number of washouts. Some of them were quite big, which I resolved, immediately for safety purposes. But these are things that I'm looking for the pond contractor and the pond walkers to notify me whenever anything like that is issued. I don't want to hear, I don't need to hear that there's a pond bank that's steep. Once I know the first time, I don't need it recur. But that becomes an issue because now employee B comes out and does it. Now they don't know, is this a new thing, or is this an old thing, or does this cross the threshold, or is it fine? So, that's something that will work out. Washouts are different because that's a small area. I know.
And I think issues like that we can track with the or work order management system, whether it's something that they're providing to us, or if we're moving into C-Click Fix or the Passarella system, that's something that we can address then. As far as like the reviews, is there any other input you guys have for the qualifications, experience, and references section? So we could move over to the pricing and specifications.
No, just that, I did it based on, what our experiences are.
I'm good.
Okay, so want to touch on pricing at all? It's up to you guys.
Okay, so the pricing was 35 points. So obviously the low bid would get 35 points, and then in my mind, the top 3 or 4, I lowered it 2 points for each less bid. They're all close, so I couldn't see, having a 5-point swing for being close. But that was my rationalization for assigning points on that. On technical specs, they all, they're all, they seem clear that they were bidding on what we were looking to have bid. So
now, there's a big difference between, well, not that, 99,000 with Solitude, next lowest, $12,000. Do you think that difference with the supervisors will make it, like, they're going to say it's the cheapest one and we're going to go this way? It's hard to say.
It's hard to say. Like I always say, we make the recommendations,
Yeah.
but they have the final say on anything.
Yeah.
It could be one of the top three. It could be someone else listed in the ranking. It's really ultimately what they.
Jim, you had a suggestion about breaking it up. I don't know if that's something.
Well, I was comfortable. I liked our current process having two contractors because it gives me a direct comparison that I see between the ponds. I'm comfortable with Solitude having the ponds because of the shape, because of the condition of the ponds that they've been managing. I don't necessarily, if it was going to go to an unknown, I would not want to have an unknown,
Right.
have sole,
I agree with that.
have all the ponds. You know, so that is my take on, you know, to the board, if they don't go by a recommendation, if they go to somebody else, I would strongly recommend having, you know, the two vendors like we have currently. I know there is a financial difference, and over the course of 5 years, it's $67,000, so it's not something to take lightly. But with that said, you know, I made my scoring, went over it a number of times, reviewed all the documents that were provided, the bids, and, you know.
Make sure I have this correct.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with Solitude if that's where we're going. As far as the point totals, they were within 1 or 2 points of Superior in my scoring, so.
Yeah, according to like the compilation, Superior is your top ranked firm.
Yeah.
If you don't want to recommend Superior and recommend an alternative, you can do so. You just have to provide justified reasoning in the same way that the board would have to provide any reasoning to not go with the top ranked firm or the recommendation that you guys recommended.
You know, if I'm comfortable with what, you know, I see.
I rated Superior as #1 just because, I mean, mine were very close between Superior,
right.
Solitude, and Cross Creek. Superior just went a little above for me because they treat as needed weekly. They're out here a little bit more. They have plenty of experience, and I'm happy with the quality of work they've done in Pelican so far. So that was, like, there was just a 2-point difference between them and Solitude, but that was that.
1 point, so.
Okay. All right. So the next step is usually making a motion similar to the following. So rank the firms as listed in the selection advisory workbook and recommend authorizing negotiations for entering into a contract with the top ranked firm, which would be Superior Waterway Services. If the negotiations with the top ranked firm are unsuccessful, authorize staff to negotiate with the next ranked firm. In all cases, bring any negotiated contract back to the board of supervisors for approval.
Okay,
So
well,
can anyone-
that to go to the ponds meeting at the next week for their review and vote.
Okay.
And
So that's your motion you're making.
So I will make a motion without restating everything, to propose to the ponds group, you know, based on our points from the worksheet, to recommend that they go with Superior.
Okay.
And
Second.
I have a second?
I can second that.
Second. All right, cool. All right, so just a reminder that district staff is still under the cone of silence, so any questions should be sent to bids, bids@gatewaydistrict.org. This concludes today's selection advisory meeting for RFP 2514. It is 10:26 a.m. Thank you for attending.
Okay.
All right, let me stop the meeting.